Welcome back. Last year in December, the Health Department, in partnership with the Department of Transportation's art program and the local community, announced the installation of a new mural called Concrete Connections. The mural was recently vandalized, and in response, Concrete Friends held a community conversation on public art during the time of COVID 19. Joining us now to share more about this conversation and the mural is Ed Mundo of Concrete Friends. Ed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and having this be a discussion.
Of course. No, it's super important. First, to start, for people who are not familiar, can you tell us about Concrete Friends and your mission?
Absolutely. So Concrete Friends, we're a collective of Bronx residents, only a handful of us. Through our love of Concrete Plant Park, we came together to ensure that the park was being utilized and activated for community members first. That's one of our missions, community first. So whether that's activities, programming, the organizations or agencies who are involved, any changes that may be coming, we want to make sure that the community gets put first. We recognize the changes that are happening around us, and quite often they don't have our best interests. So we just want to do what we can, do our part as residents and community members, and make sure that the extended community knows what's happening and feels that they could do something. And most importantly, that is their part.
Right. I hear that and I respect that. And one of those things that you guys had a hand in was, of course, the Concrete Connections mural. The artist, and can you tell us about the artist, the mural itself, and the mural's connection to the community? It's a really nice connection that happened during COVID, right?
Yes. So absolutely. The artist is Richard Chance. He's a Brooklyn-born native person of color. He got connected to the project through Interborough Partners, which is one of the folks. The other folks involved are Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, Bronx River Alliance, and New York State DOT. And that's actually where it stands. The connection is on the overpass along the Sheridan, former Expressway, now Boulevard. And it was actually something that stretch of street have been getting promoted and requested for changes, for improvements by organizations like YMPJ for years, because it's dark, it's kind of desolate, and it's right near the entrance of the park. So it's a great way to kind of highlight the park, and not just highlight the park by saying here's the entrance to the park, but the murals on the actual public art is of community members doing activities that they would do in the park. These are actual Bronx residents, actual people from the neighborhood and community. So it's been great to kind of literally make that connection.
Right.
You know, that those wordings were intended.
I see what y'all did there. But
They did that.
recently, though, Mundo, something that Concrete Friends shared is that unfortunately the Concrete Connections mural was defaced. What exactly happened, and what were your collective thoughts as a group when this happened?
So it's gotten defaced a few times. It's been, I believe, like 3 different instances with
Oh,
graffiti. The first time, we don't understand what the person who did it was trying to communicate. The symbols or whatever they drew weren't really understandable, which also highlights the importance of that art and having beautiful spaces is an aspect of how you feel mentally and physically. The second time it was a tag up. It was just a regular throw up tag from someone in the neighborhood. So obviously we were a little disappointed and upset that this happened. Also understanding that there's other things that are involved that we may not fully understand. How many people were told? Do these people, the person who did this, do they know this is their community members? So we just felt like we were able to have a discussion with the partners involved. We wanted to make sure that the community itself and the neighborhood and everyone who loves this park or walks through this area, or works in this area, can also be like, hey, we saw what happened. We know that the answer is going to come from us. So we want to make sure that that answer is heard and given to the people who are responsible for the project.
absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because you did hold a community conversation with the community. Can you tell us about the turnout and the conversation's ultimate goal?
Absolutely. So it was a great turnout. This was the first time we've ever done something like that. Concrete Friends, we're a very new group. We've only been around for about a year and a half to 2 years, a little over 2 years actually. But we're all just regular people from the neighborhood. We're not specialists. So we was like, what we would normally have done, we would have had an event in the park and invited folks and just talked to regular people.
Mhm.
Since we couldn't do that due to COVID, we said, let's host one virtually. And we had about 3 dozen people attend online. It was great conversation. It was obvious that more communication needs to get put out to the people when these type of projects are happening. At the same time, who exactly is doing that communicating, what neighborhoods or what communities are they connected to. Like a neighborhood could be a community, but there's communities within those communities, and it's also the understanding that maybe the person who did the tagging understands that when art and beautification projects come to the neighborhood, that's probably from an outsider. There's maybe rent issues coming soon or developer issues. So like it's very complicated, but we know if we could just all talk and reach out to each other, we'd be able to figure it out.
Yeah, that's definitely a fine line, in our borough when it comes to art washing and people not understanding, like maybe this was done with the community involved and maybe it wasn't. So perhaps that person did underestimate or believe that this was part of art washing and gentrification in the community when in fact it wasn't. So I'm glad that that conversation was open and that dialogue was open for the entire community to attend and also understand that this is coming from a place of love and community. And Concrete Friends, of course, is there to defend the spot and defend the community. So I'm glad that it happened in that manner. It's really important and doesn't often happen in our borough. So seeing that that's happening, and that, like you said, it happens in the park, but because of the snow, because of COVID, it's hard to get together in person. So thank you
Yeah.
for holding it virtually for the community to attend.
No, absolutely, and it just allowed a format for everybody to learn. Whether it was us, community members, the organizations, the agencies. If we can communicate and keep that open dialogue and make sure that we're being heard and holding people accountable, whether it's ourselves sometimes, then that's what matters most.
Right. And Mundo, just tell us about the significance of art during these tough times in the community and why it is pertinent that we protect it and embrace it in our homes, especially when it comes from a community front space.
Well, I think art, this is my personal opinion, art to me is on the front lines of pretty much everything that happens within our communities, whether it's social change, political change, revolution, form of expression. Art is on that forefront. What's art and reading or writing, like so all the levels of arts, no matter whether it's photographing, like how many things changed because a moment in time was captured and frozen by a photographer. So whether this is some of the opportunities maybe for sometimes people to see themselves displayed in their community without that person being deceased. These are living caregivers, living neighborhoods and neighbors and residents. So art plays a major role. And in these times where so many things are getting cut, especially educational programs and all these things that people consider discretionary spending, it's understandable. Like I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and like I have a major affinity for graffiti. There's a lot of stuff that I love to see. In the same breath, we need to make sure that we're respectful of other forms of art the same way we want whatever we deem art to be respected.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mundo. And of course, what's next? Is the Concrete Connections mural being restored? Is it going to be, fixed up? What can people expect?
So the mural, there isn't an opportunity to replace the panels. Only issue is with like everything, there's limited resources. So the panels won't be able to get replaced as needed. It'll be maybe once, twice, and then after that it's done. And DOT has certain standards. So our objective is let's try to make sure we can get as many people aware as to what's going on, provide as much feedback from folks that, hey, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, and give a few attempts at different things before we just lose this project altogether. It's slated to be up to the end of about September, I believe. So, we got some time. I get it. It's dark. The sun goes down early. We're still in winter. The frustrations of the pandemic we're still dealing with. The streets were emptier. So there's a lot of stuff that allowed itself to maybe get to this point. But now that we're here, we can move forward and as a whole, project partners, community members, graph artists, anybody who's involved, and really find out what's the solution and have a respectful conclusion.
Absolutely. And just as a bonus, can you tell us about the oasis that the Concrete Plant Park is and has been for the community, especially through the pandemic? I remember as a bonus, I grew up in Soundview by Boynton Avenue, and I used to see that big casa by the railroad, and I used to be like, "Yo, what is that? It's like a big castle with with vines and greenery and stuff." And like, I'm so happy that the park was recently like it's not that old. And you guys
Wow.
had a hand in that as well, right? So just tell us about just the oasis that it is today.
So I'm glad you used that word because exactly how I felt it is. That's one of the words I describe it to be. Concrete Plant Park was an industrial space that was abandoned And through youth, mainly youth, organizers were able to come together, different organizations were develop a coalition, and were able to turn that space into a park. They said we need waterfront access to the Bronx River, and they got it. They used art, they used organizing, they used activism. So that park has a long-standing history of being home or being cared for by the community, desired and wanted by the community. And then once they built that space, there wasn't a lot of people going there because it was like, hey, the people who from the neighborhood knew you don't go down there, not realizing it was a park. So then, projects like the Foodway and Swale, organizations like YMPJ and Bronx River Alliance started really activating and putting an interest in the park to make sure that, hey, come out, this is your space. And that's where we as Concrete Friends stepped in, was like, okay, there's new buildings coming up. There's a lot of attention being given. People are trooping out from Brooklyn. The New York Times wrote an article. We all know what this looks like, So it was like, let's make sure that this park, this space that started from the community maintains in that same fashion from here on out. And we've been fortunate enough to work alongside those organizations and develop public programming, free programming. So that's always our mission: community first. And we're not gatekeepers. We realize the access and privilege that we have, and we want to make sure that every community member knows that they have that same access, they have that same privilege. And hopefully we could just continue making use of that beautiful space. I love it.
I love it too. I've been there. I've been at Swale with the floating food forest. It was amazing. There's fruits growing there, like, for God's sakes. Oh my God, in the Bronx. And I remember there was like drumming and stuff. People were drumming. Amazing.
That right there, that drumming part alone, that was part of YMPJ's input and youth people's input, because they used to have the drumming circle. And that was part of the design to ensure that those kind of cultures and traditions will continue, So that almost everything in that space is very intentional. Even the silos, there was talk of bringing them down, and everybody's like, no, this is representative of our history of what this space used to be and what we had to come to turn it into what we have now.
Yeah, we have so many beautiful historic stories, and Concrete Plant Park is definitely one of those places that you can learn so much about. Finally, Mundo, before you go, please invite people to visit Concrete Plant Park and get connected with you at Concrete Friends, learn about future conversations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Concrete Plant Park is located right along Westchester Avenue, right along the Bronx River, between Bronx River Avenue and Whitlock or Edgewater, depending where you're coming from. It's nice in between Bruckner Boulevard and Westchester Avenue. We're trying to work on signage for the mural. The mural is just south of the park. DOT is going to be putting up some signs soon. We're working on trying to get some signage up as well. We got the Foodway. It's New York City's first and only publicly grown edible garden. You can go, you can pick the forage for different kind of things, teas, just so much space. concretefriends@gmail.com is how you can get in contact with us. We're on Twitter and on Instagram as well under the same handle. And feel free to shoot us an email. We're always looking for more membership.
Thank you so much, Mundo. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great one.
Again, for updates on Concrete Connections, Concrete Plant Park, and future community conversations, you can follow at Concrete Friends on social media and visit the Concrete Plant Park. Take that 4 bus over there, take the 6 train. You got to walk a little bit, I think, but it's right there by Elder Avenue. That's all for our show today. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always. Thank you again, Mundo.